The Enchanted Child and the Seven Keepers. In a land far beyond the reach of ordinary travelers, a realm of endless forests and golden castles thrived under a mysterious glow. Within its grand palace, a queen sat by her window, sewing with delicate hands. Snowflakes swirled outside, blanketing the world in shimmering white. As she worked, a sharp needle pricked her finger, and 3 drops of crimson blood fell upon the ivory snow. Mesmerized by the contrast, she whispered a quiet wish. If only I had a child with skin as pure as snow, lips as red as a rose, and hair dark as the midnight sky. Time passed, and her wish was granted. She gave birth to a daughter, a child of breathtaking beauty, whom she named Lilia. But fate is not always kind, and soon after Lilia's birth, the queen's spirit faded, leaving the kingdom in mourning. The king, though heartbroken, remarried a woman of striking beauty, yet her heart was cold, and her soul shrouded in vanity. This new queen possessed a mirror unlike any other, one that whispered truths only she desired to hear. Every day, she stood before it and asked, "Mirror so bright, tell me this night, who in this land is fairest in sight?" And each time, the mirror echoed back, "You, my queen, are beauty's light." But time does not stand still, and Lilia grew into a vision beyond compare. By her 7th year, the whispers of the wind carried her name, and her radiance outshone even the queen. One evening, as the queen sought her reflection's praise, the mirror spoke a different truth. "You, dear queen, are lovely, it's true, but Lilia's beauty now surpasses you." A shadow fell upon the queen's heart, twisting into envy so fierce it poisoned her very thoughts. Her beauty was no longer enough, and her obsession darkened her soul. Determined to rid herself of Lilia, she summoned a hunter and commanded him to take the girl deep into the forest, never to return. "Bring me proof of her end," she demanded, her voice as icy as the winter outside. The hunter led Lilia into the depths of the wild woods, his hands trembling at the cruel task. As he raised his blade, the girl's eyes, wide with innocence, pleaded for mercy. "Please, spare me. I will disappear, never to return," she whispered. Something in her voice melted the hunter's resolve. Lowering his weapon, he sighed. "Run, child, far from here. May the forest be kinder to you than this cruel world." He let her go, knowing well the dangers of the woods. To deceive the queen, he took the heart of a wild creature and presented it as proof of his deed. That very night, the queen feasted upon it, convinced her rival was no more. Alone and frightened, Lilia wandered beneath towering trees, their twisted branches whispering in the night wind. Shadows loomed, and unseen creatures lurked, yet none dared harm her. As exhaustion overtook her, she stumbled upon a tiny cottage nestled between the roots of an ancient oak. Inside, the house was neat and strange. Miniature chairs and tiny beds lined the walls, and a table lay set with 7 small plates, each with a modest meal. Starving, she took only a little from each, careful not to deplete any one portion entirely. With a weary heart, she curled into the smallest bed and drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep. Little did she know, the true magic of the forest was only beginning to unfold. Nestled in the warmth of the tiny bed, Lilia let exhaustion claim her. The house, though small, felt strangely comforting, and as she surrendered to sleep, a sense of peace washed over her. Night fell, and with it came the return of the cottage's true inhabitants, 7 small, bearded men, their faces lined with wisdom and toil. They spent their days mining deep within the earth, unearthing treasures hidden beneath the mountain's heart. As they entered, their candlelight flickered against the wooden walls, casting shadows that danced in the cozy space. It did not take long for them to notice something was amiss. "Who has been sitting in my chair?" one asked, frowning. "Who has eaten from my plate?" another inquired, inspecting his dish. "And my bread? Someone has taken a piece," a third grumbled. Their questions continued, their eyes darting around the room, until at last, the youngest among them gasped. "Look," he whispered, pointing toward his bed. There, beneath the soft white quilt, lay a girl unlike any they had ever seen. The 7 gathered close, lifting their candles high to better see the unexpected visitor. "By the stars," one murmured, "she is as beautiful as the dawn." Though curiosity burned in their eyes, they did not wake her. Instead, they allowed her to rest, taking turns sharing a bed throughout the night. When morning arrived, Lilia stirred, blinking as she found herself surrounded by unfamiliar faces. Fear flickered in her expression, but the little men only smiled warmly. "Do not be afraid," said one, stepping forward. "Tell us your name, child." "Lilia," she replied softly. They listened as she recounted her tale, the jealousy of her stepmother, the hunter's mercy, and the desperate flight through the forest. At the end of her story, the 7 exchanged knowing glances. "You may stay with us," one said at last, his voice gentle yet firm. "But in return, you must keep our home in order. Cook, sew, tend the beds, and ensure all is neat and clean. Do this, and you will never lack for anything." A smile bloomed on Lilia's face. "With all my heart, I accept." And so she remained in the little house, tending to her chores while the 7 went each day to the mountains in search of gold. They warned her before departing, their voices filled with caution. "Beware of your stepmother. If she learns you are alive, she will not rest until she finds you. Open the door to no one." Far away, in the grand palace, the queen stood before her enchanted mirror, confident in her place as the fairest of them all. "Mirror so bright, tell me this night, who in this land is fairest in sight?" But the mirror did not answer as she expected. "Queen, your beauty is rare and grand, but Lilia lives in the forest land. With the 7 who dwell within, her beauty outshines yours again." A sharp fury ignited within the queen's heart. The huntsman had betrayed her. Lilia was still alive. Her jealousy seethed like fire, and she knew she would find no peace until the girl was gone. For days, she plotted. At last, an idea took root in her mind. With careful hands, she painted her face, aged her features, and draped herself in the rags of a wandering merchant. No one, not even the wisest eyes, would recognize her now. And so, with wicked intent, hidden beneath the guise of kindness, she set off toward the forest, determined to finish what she had started. Disguised as an old merchant, the wicked queen crossed the 7 mountains, her steps determined and her heart dark with envy. She reached the small cottage nestled in the glen and knocked on the wooden door. "Fine wares to sell, beautiful laces of every color," she called in a sing-song voice. Lilia, curious, peeked out of the window. "Good day, kind woman. What treasures do you bring?" "Laces, my dear, woven with silk, light as air. Here, see for yourself," the old woman said, holding up a shimmering piece of fabric. The girl hesitated for a moment, but then thought, surely there is no harm in such a simple thing. With that, she unlatched the door and stepped outside, her eyes filled with wonder at the delicate lace. "You are such a lovely child," the woman cooed. "Let me lace this for you properly." Lilia, suspecting nothing, allowed her to tie the lace around her bodice. But as the queen worked, her hands moved with cruel precision, pulling the fabric tighter and tighter. Lilia gasped, struggling for breath, but the grip only tightened until she collapsed, her body limp and still. The queen smirked. "Now at last your beauty will no longer trouble me." With that, she turned and disappeared into the trees. By evening, the 7 keepers returned from their work. The moment they saw Lilia lifeless on the ground, panic filled their hearts. "What has happened?" one cried. Another, noticing the tightly bound lace, pulled out a small blade. "Quick, cut it loose." The moment the lace was severed, Lilia sucked in a desperate breath, her color slowly returning. She opened her eyes, dazed, and the dwarfs gathered around her in relief. "It was the queen," she whispered. "She tricked me. You must never, ever open the door again," one warned, his voice firm. "Her evil knows no bounds." Meanwhile, the queen returned to her mirror, expecting victory. "Mirror so bright, tell me this night, who in this land is fairest in sight?" But once again, the mirror betrayed her. "Queen, your beauty is grand and rare, but Lilia lives with the 7 who care. Her radiance still shines, pure and bright, 1,000 times fairer in morning light." The queen's hands trembled with rage. How can this be? That girl still breathes? Her fury burned hotter than before, and she vowed that this time, Lilia would not escape her fate. Summoning dark magic, she fashioned a comb, its teeth laced with poison, designed to seep into the skin at the faintest touch. Then, altering her disguise once more, she set off across the mountains. Again, she knocked upon the little door. "Fine wares to sell, fine wares to sell." Lilia peeked out cautiously. "I cannot let you in," she said. "Oh, but you need not. Only look at this fine comb," Such a gift for a lovely young lady like yourself." Lilia's eyes widened at the sight of the intricate silver comb, glistening in the sunlight. She reached out, unable to resist its beauty. "Let me place it in your hair, my dear, just for a moment." As soon as the comb touched Lilia's locks, the poison took hold. Her body wavered, and she fell, her vision fading into darkness. The queen smiled in triumph. "This time, no one will save you." But once more, fate intervened. The 7 keepers returned to find Lilia on the ground, unmoving. Not wasting a second, they searched for the cause, and soon found the comb. The moment they pulled it free, the spell broke, and Lilia gasped back to life. "She will not stop," one of the keepers muttered. "You must be stronger than ever, Lilia. Do not trust anyone." Far away, the queen stood before her mirror once more, demanding reassurance of her victory. But the answer shattered her hopes. "Queen, your beauty is grand and rare, but Lilia lives with the 7 who care. Her heart beats strong, her light still glows, 1,000 times fairer as each day goes." The queen's rage consumed her. "Then I shall destroy her myself," she spat. Deep in her secret chamber, she crafted her most devious trick yet. A single apple, gleaming red and white. A fruit so tempting, so perfect, that no one could resist it. But hidden beneath its beauty was the deadliest poison of all. Disguising herself one final time, she crossed the 7 mountains, her heart set on finishing what she had begun. As she knocked upon the small cottage door, Lilia leaned out of the window. The wicked queen, now disguised as a simple peasant woman, journeyed once more across the 7 mountains, her final trick hidden within the folds of her cloak. Knocking on the door of the small cottage, she called out in a sweet yet deceptive voice, "Fine apples to sell, the juiciest, sweetest apples you have ever tasted." From the window, Lilia peered out cautiously. "I cannot let anyone in," she said firmly. "The 7 keepers have forbidden it." "Very well," the woman replied, feigning disappointment. "I can sell my apples elsewhere." Then, with a cunning smile, she held up the most beautiful fruit of all, an apple so red and flawless it seemed to glow. "Look, child, I see you hesitate. Let me prove my honesty." She sliced the apple in 2, revealing its crisp white flesh. Taking a bite from one side, she chewed and swallowed. "See? No harm done. Here, you may take the other half." The deception was masterful, for only one side of the apple held poison, hidden beneath its rosy skin. Lilia, tempted by the perfect fruit and reassured by the woman's actions, reached out and took the offered half. The moment the first morsel touched her tongue, a terrible darkness rushed over her. Her vision blurred, her limbs weakened, and before she could cry out, she collapsed to the ground, still and lifeless. The queen gazed down at her with a wicked smile. "As white as snow, as red as blood, as black as ebony," she whispered. "This time, no magic will wake you." With her heart full of triumph, she left the quiet glen and returned to her palace. Before her enchanted mirror, she stood tall and proud. "Mirror so bright, tell me this night, who in this land is fairest in sight?" And at last, the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are now the fairest of all." Satisfied, the queen allowed herself peace, at least as much as a heart poisoned by envy could ever know. That evening, when the 7 keepers returned home, their hearts filled with dread at the sight before them, Lilia lay on the ground, unmoving, her skin as pale as the snow outside. Desperate, they searched for any trace of a curse. They loosened her bodice, brushed her hair, bathed her face in cool water, yet nothing could wake her. The girl they had come to love as their own was gone. For 3 days and nights, they mourned her, never leaving her side. When the time came to lay her to rest, they could not bear to place her beneath the earth. "She still looks as if she merely sleeps," one whispered. "We cannot hide such beauty away." So, they crafted a coffin of crystal, clear as ice, so that all could see her as she was, a child of purity and light. Upon its golden plaque, they inscribed her name and her lineage, marking her as a daughter of a king. They carried the coffin to the highest hill, where she could rest beneath the watchful sky. One among them always stood guard, while birds of the forest, an owl, a raven, and a dove, kept silent vigil beside her. Seasons passed, yet Lilia remained unchanged. One day, a young prince rode through the woods, and seeing the coffin atop the hill, felt drawn to it, as if by fate itself. Stepping closer, he read the golden letters, and his heart stirred. "I have never seen such beauty," he murmured. Let me take this coffin with me. I will cherish it always." The 7 keepers shook their heads. Not for all the gold in the world would we part with her. But the prince pleaded, "I beg you, I cannot live without looking upon her. If you grant me this, I will honor you as my own kin." Seeing his sincerity, they relented, and the prince's servants carried the crystal coffin away. As they journeyed, fate intervened once more. The men stumbled over a hidden root, and with the sudden jolt, the piece of poisoned apple lodged in Lilia's throat was shaken loose. A single breath passed through her lips, then another, and another. Her eyes fluttered open. Where am I?" she whispered, her voice soft but full of life. The prince, overwhelmed with joy, stepped forward. "You are safe now," he said, his heart pounding. "You were lost in darkness, but now you have returned." As she sat up, he recounted all that had happened. Taking her hand, he said, "I would rather have you by my side than anything in this world. Come with me to my father's kingdom, and we shall never be apart." Lilia, kind and gentle of heart, saw the truth in his eyes and agreed. Their wedding was celebrated with splendor, a grand feast prepared in their honor. But one last guest remained unaware of the bride's true identity. The queen, upon receiving her invitation, adorned herself in her finest gown and stood before her mirror. "Mirror so bright, tell me this night, who in this land is fairest in sight?" And for the last time, the mirror answered, "O queen, though beauty is thine, the new bride's light outshines. She is 1,000 times more fair." A chill ran through the queen's veins. No, it could not be. She arrived at the wedding, her steps hesitant, her heart pounding, and there, standing before her, was Lilia, alive, radiant, and more beautiful than ever. The queen's face turned ashen with terror, her hands trembling. She could neither flee nor speak, trapped in her own horror. Justice, however, had been waiting. Before the night ended, the queen met the fate she had long deserved, ensuring that never again would envy cast its shadow upon the land. And so, Lilia and the prince ruled with kindness and wisdom, proving that a pure heart will always triumph over darkness.